What happens when an entire ocean breathes through a single entrance? Where giant sharks hunt in waters that have witnessed empires rise and fall. There exists a sea surrounded by land, isolated from the world for millions of years, where ancestral creatures developed survival strategies that defy everything we know about marine life. This is not just any ocean. It's an evolutionary trap, a natural laboratory locked between 3 continents. And what lives here has developed secrets the rest of the planet still doesn't fully comprehend. Squeezed between Europe, Africa, and Asia, the Mediterranean Sea stretches across 2.5 million square kilometers of waters that rarely exceed 28 degrees Celsius in summer and don't freeze even in the harshest winters. Connected to the Atlantic only through the Strait of Gibraltar, a gap of just 14 kilometers at its narrowest point, this semi-enclosed sea functions as its own circulatory system, pumping warm surface currents inward and expelling cold, deep waters outward in a cycle that takes decades to complete. Its depths reach 5,121 meters in the Hellenic Trench, whilst its margins harbor everything from rocky deserts to marshy deltas, creating ecological gradients so extreme they've separated entire populations of marine animals into distinct evolutionary lineages. Less than 20 meters from the surface, where sunlight still penetrates with full force, infinite extensions of green meadows sway beneath invisible currents like submerged wheat fields. Posidonia oceanica isn't a seaweed. It's a true flowering plant with roots, stems, and seeds that migrated from the continent to the ocean millions of years ago and never returned. Each dark green blade can measure up to 1.5 meters in length, forming dense forests where life explodes in concentrations that rival tropical rainforests. Among its undulating leaves, Mediterranean mussels, Mytilus galliprovincialis, adhere in colonies so compact that their shells form artificial rocky carpets, filtering thousands of liters of water per day. A single long-snouted seahorse, Hippocampus gutulatus, with its 15 centimeters of pure evolutionary oddity, coils its prehensile tail around a Posidonia stem, its eyes moving independently whilst hunting invisible microcrustaceans floating in the water column. The male of this species carries fertilized eggs in an abdominal pouch for weeks, expanding like a living balloon until hundreds of perfect miniatures explode into the world in an inverted birth that defies our basic understanding of fatherhood. Here, where intertwined roots trap sediments and build marine soil centimeter by centimeter over millennia, the meadow doesn't just shelter life. It creates the very substrate of existence. At the rocky edges where the meadow ends abruptly, limestone walls plunge into blue abysses charged with currents. Colonies of red coral, Corallium rubrum, grow inverted beneath rocky overhangs, their calcified skeletons displaying that blood-red hue that Mediterranean civilizations have valued for 3,000 years as a symbol of protection and power. Each tiny polyp extends translucent tentacles at night, capturing microscopic plankton in a silent collective hunt, whilst the rigid skeleton beneath grows less than 1 millimeter per year, meaning a colony 30 centimeters across could be 300 years old, older than entire nations. Camouflaged perfectly against this impossibly chromatic backdrop, a Mediterranean scorpionfish, Scorpina spe, remains absolutely motionless for hours, its warty skin mimicking stone and algae with photographic perfection. 13 dorsal spines carry venomous glands capable of injecting neurotoxins that cause unbearable pain in humans, a reminder that beauty and danger here share the same body. When a distracted fish passes too close, the scorpionfish's mouth explodes forward with hypersonic speed, expanding like a hydraulic vacuum that swallows the prey whole before it even registers the attack. This ambush isn't hunting. It's pure patience engineering transformed into instant violence. Further from shore, where the bottom disappears beyond 100 meters and the blue light becomes deep indigo, enormous shadows glide with elegance impossible for their size. A fin whale, Balænoptera physalis, the second largest animal ever to exist on Earth, cuts through Mediterranean waters with its 22 meters of aerodynamic length, moving at speeds exceeding 37 kilometers per hour when necessary. Its right side displays white coloration, whilst the left remains dark. A unique asymmetry among cetaceans that scientists believe assists in cooperative hunting of schools, confusing prey with contradictory patterns during circular maneuvers. These giants filter up to 3 tons of krill and small fish per day through keratinous baleen plates that function as biological nets, filling mouths the size of a small room before expelling entire oceans through the throat, retaining only what's edible. Yet the Mediterranean offers a disturbing mystery. These fin whales form an isolated subpopulation, genetically distinct from their Atlantic relatives, remaining within this semi-enclosed sea year-round, whilst others migrate thousands of kilometers. They don't leave, don't migrate, simply circulate these ancient waters as if some deep instinct keeps them voluntarily imprisoned in a giant nursery they've never needed to escape. Where the seabed plummets into tectonic faults that open wounds in Earth's crust, where darkness is total and pressure crushes metal like paper, even stranger inhabitants govern territories of silent nightmare. Sperm whales, Physeter macrocephalus, the largest toothed predators on the planet, dive to 2,200 meters depth in apnoeas lasting 90 minutes. their 18-meter bodies compressing beneath pressures that would transform submarines into crushed cans. In these lightless depths, they hunt colossal squid using echolocation, sonic clicks so powerful they stun prey meters away, literally paralyzing nervous systems with sound waves. Their lower jaws bear conical teeth 20 centimeters long that don't serve for chewing. Squid are swallowed whole, sometimes still struggling inside stomachs that process soft flesh without ever feeling the need for grinding. Circular scars covering their square heads reveal epic battles in the darkness, marks from giant squid suckers that defended themselves desperately whilst being dragged to their deaths. Solitary males patrol underwater territories the size of small countries, vocalizing at frequencies so low they reverberate for hundreds of kilometers through oceanic layers. Ghostly conversations between titans that humans will never directly witness. Returning to the upper layers where light still governs behaviors, fusiform shapes of liquid silver traverse currents with military precision. The blue shark, Prionas glauca, with its 3 meters 80 centimeters of pure evolutionary hydrodynamics, glides through the Mediterranean on migrations that connect this sea to the Atlantic through Gibraltar, following pulses of temperature and prey concentrations with navigation that defies human comprehension. Its extraordinarily long pectoral fins function as underwater wings, allowing glides that conserve energy on journeys of thousands of kilometers. Enormous eyes adapted for deep waters capture minimal light, while specialized sensory organs detect electrical fields generated by prey heartbeats meters away. Each muscular contraction of a hidden fish generates an electrical signature that sharks read like biological fingerprints. Pregnant females carry up to 100 pups in gestations lasting 12 months, but inside the uterus, a silent massacre occurs. Larger embryos devour smaller siblings in intrauterine cannibalism that ensures only the strongest are born. Surviving in the Mediterranean means competing before even knowing the ocean. Near the surface, where waves break against themselves, creating ephemeral curtains of bubbles, an even larger presence materializes from the deep blue like a living ship. Through gill structures that function as microscopic biological sieves. At up to 10 meters in length and 5 tons of muscular mass, this gentle giant is the second largest fish in the world, yet feeds exclusively on organisms invisible to the naked eye. Copepods, larvae, eggs, the plankton that forms the invisible base of every marine food chain. Its slow and methodical swimming, at a constant speed of 3.5 kilometers per hour, maximizes filtration whilst minimizing energy expenditure. In a biological economy so perfect, they fatten silently whilst crossing oceans. For centuries, Mediterranean fishermen slaughtered these sharks for their enormous livers, which represent 25% of total body weight and contain extremely valuable oils. Today, populations are slowly recovering, but each dusky groupers, Epinephelus marginatus, robust predators that can exceed 1 meter 50 centimeters and 50 kilograms in the most imposing specimens, establish domains in caves and rocky crevices they defend with surprising aggression for fish. Their stocky bodies conceal explosive musculature capable of instant accelerations when prey ventures too close. Cavernous mouths open in a sudden vacuum that sucks entire fish in a tenth of a second. But Mediterranean groupers guard a disturbing reproductive secret. All are born female, living years in this sex before irreversibly transforming into males when they reach specific size and age. This change isn't gradual. It's a complete hormonal metamorphosis that restructures gonads, behavior, and social hierarchy within months. Larger males dominate harems of smaller females, but if the male dies or disappears, the dominant female initiates immediate transformation to fill the reproductive vacuum. Sex here isn't destiny, it's strategy, an evolutionary tool as fluid as the current surrounding them. Camouflaged amongst rocks covered by encrusting calcareous algae, a creature of disturbing intelligence observes the world with eyes that evolved independently from ours, yet achieved comparable complexity. The common octopus, Octopus vulgaris, extends muscular tentacles lined with up to 250 sensory suckers on each arm, chemically tasting everything it touches through gustatory receptors distributed across its skin. Its decentralized brain processes information in 9 nervous centers, 1 central and 8 peripheral in the arms, allowing each limb to make autonomous decisions whilst the main brain coordinates general strategies. Chromatophores under direct neurological control transform its skin into living canvases, changing color and texture in fractions of a second to mimic rocks, algae, or sand with photorealistic perfection. When hunting, it paralyzes crabs by injecting venomous saliva through the horny beak hidden between its arms, dissolving internal tissues before sucking out the liquefied interior. But Mediterranean octopuses demonstrate something even more unsettling: memory, individual recognition of humans, ability to solve complex puzzles, and even signs of distinct personality between individuals. They play, explore out of pure curiosity, and die soon after reproducing, females wasting away whilst protecting eggs for months without eating, sacrificing themselves completely for the next generation in a demonstration of parental devotion that always ends in death. Where currents converge carrying nutrients from the depths to illuminated zones, explosions of life attract opportunistic hunters from all oceanic layers. Mediterranean barracuda, Sphyraena, patrol these productivity zones in loose groups, their silvery bodies of 1 meter 60 centimeters cutting water with accelerations exceeding 50 kilometers per hour in short, lethal rushes. Prominent jaws armed with teeth sharp as razor blades don't bite. They transfix, piercing bodies of smaller fish with precise thrusts before shaking violently to tear flesh. Their enormous, laterally positioned eyes offer almost panoramic vision, detecting subtle movements dozens of meters away whilst remaining motionless in the water column, conserving energy like biological missiles in standby mode. Human divers sometimes report being followed by curious barracuda that maintain fixed distance, observing with disturbing intensity. These aren't attacks, but assessments, predatory calculations executed by simple yet efficient brains. In turbid waters or during dawn and dusk when visibility diminishes, accidental attacks can occur when shiny objects are mistaken for fish, reminding us that in the Mediterranean, humans aren't apex predators. We're merely tolerated visitors. Descending again to rocky bottoms beyond 40 meters, where temperature drops sharply and sunlight arrives only as diffuse bluish glow, complex microecosystems thrive in every crevice and overhang. Tiny tentacled blennies, Parablenius tentacularis, just 12 centimeters in length, establish minuscule territories in holes abandoned by urchins or bivalves, their heads projecting warily whilst fleshy appendages above their eyes wave like alien antennae. These little fish demonstrate sophisticated parental behavior. Males meticulously clean rocky surfaces to attract females, who deposit yellow eggs in organized layers before completely abandoning the offspring. The male then remains an obsessive guardian, ventilating eggs with precise fin movements to ensure adequate oxygenation, ferociously attacking any intruder that approaches, even predators hundreds of times larger. He doesn't eat during weeks of vigilance, visibly wasting away whilst his young develop inside translucent capsules. When they hatch, hundreds of microscopic larvae explode simultaneously into frantic races toward the water column, dispersing in currents that will carry them kilometers away. And the male, exhausted, finally returns to feeding, having fulfilled an evolutionary purpose that justifies his temporary metabolic sacrifice. In the sandy plains that stretch monotonously between rocky formations, where there seems to be nothing but sterile sediment, life thrives invisible beneath the granular surface. Starfish of the genus Astropecten glide slowly through the sand using thousands of hydraulic tube feet that function as coordinated microscopic legs, their 5 arms chemically investigating the substrate, searching for buried mollusks. When they detect hidden bivalves, they begin determined excavation, removing sand grain by grain until exposing the buried shell. Then, they execute a disturbing digestive strategy. They engulf the entire prey with an averted stomach, enveloping it in an external gastric sac that releases enzymes dissolving soft tissues directly, transforming the mollusk's interior into nutritious soup they absorb before retracting the stomach back inside. There's no mouth in the traditional sense. The entire digestive system projects outside the body, processes food externally, and retracts in an anatomical inversion that defies basic logic of how organisms should function. Each arm can regenerate completely if lost, and sufficiently large pieces of starfish can regenerate entire individuals, creating accidental clones through autotomy, self-mutilation transformed into emergency reproductive strategy when conditions favor dispersal over structural conservation. During moonless nights, when absolute darkness covers the Mediterranean and humans imagine oceans sleeping, the true festival of life explodes in invisible dimensions. Loggerhead turtles, caretta, with their reddish carapaces of 1 meter 20 centimeters, emerge silently on specific beaches where they were born decades ago, guided by terrestrial magnetism and olfactory memories that defy complete scientific explanation. Females drag themselves laboriously beyond the high tide line, digging precise nests with rear flippers transformed into spades, depositing up to 130 spherical eggs in a humid chamber before meticulously covering everything and returning to the sea without ever meeting their offspring. Sand temperature during incubation determines hatchling sex. Warmer sands produce females, cooler generates males, in an environmental sex determination system that's now creating dangerous imbalances with global warming elevating average temperatures. "60 days later, perfect miniatures 8 centimeters long explode simultaneously from the sand in frantic races toward the ocean, navigating by light reflected on water whilst terrestrial and marine predators devour 99% before they reach maturity. The rare survivors will swim for decades through entire oceans before returning precisely to their natal beach to repeat the cycle, closing a circular journey that connects generations through millennia of genetic memory." At interfaces where fresh river water meets marine salinity, chemical gradients create zones of extreme physiological stress that only specialists tolerate. Short-snouted seahorses, hippocampus, slightly smaller than their long-snouted cousins, inhabit these transition areas where daily brackish variations would fatally test most marine organisms. Their osmoregulatory systems work constantly adjusting internal salt balances, maintaining homeostasis in environments that fluctuate dramatically with tides and rains. Males execute elaborate courtship dances, changing coloration through limited chromatophores, intertwining tails with females in embraces lasting hours while synchronizing reproductive cycles. The transfer of eggs from female to male marsupial pouch occurs in precise seconds. She inserts an ovipositor into a minimal opening and injects dozens of eggs he fertilizes internally, completely assuming gestation whilst she immediately returns to feeding to produce the next clutch. Mediterranean populations face alarming declines due to destruction of coastal habitats, pollution, and capture for aquarium trade, but also due to traditional medicinal uses that consume millions annually based on beliefs without scientific foundation. A tragedy of superstition eliminating 50 million years of evolutionary engineering for empty promises. As seasons transition and currents cycle nutrients through vertical layers, continental scale phenomena temporarily transform entire regions of the Mediterranean. Deep upwellings carry cold waters rich in dissolved minerals to photic zones, detonating phytoplankton blooms that tinge square kilometers of ocean in greenish tones. These microscopic explosions of primary productivity feed complete trophic cascades. Zooplankton multiplies exponentially, schools of small fish follow the nutritious clouds, larger predators converge opportunistically, and the entire food chain vibrates in synchrony with pulses of abundance. Fin whales accelerate feeding, swallowing additional tons whilst conditions permit, accumulating adipose reserves that will sustain migrations or reproductive periods. Blue sharks follow prey concentrations through chemical sensors that detect dissolved amino acids kilometers before sighting schools, coordinating cooperative attacks that corral fish against the surface. Even benthic organisms fixed to the substrate synchronously release gametes into water columns, creating milky clouds of sperm and ova that meet randomly in currents, betting on statistical volume over parental care. The Mediterranean breathes through these cycles, contracting and expanding biologically in rhythms operating beyond everyday human perception, yet governing the existence of every creature calling these waters home. Beneath everything, beneath swaying meadows, swift hunters, filter-feeding giants, and coral architects, lies the temporal substrate that truly defines this sea. The Mediterranean completely dried up between 5.96 and 5.33 million years ago during the Messinian salinity crisis, evaporating into superheated salt plains when the connection to the Atlantic closed tectonically. Salt layers kilometers thick deposited where whales swim today, and marine life was regionally extinct. When Gibraltar catastrophically reopened, a waterfall with 100 times the volume of Iguazu Falls poured the entire Atlantic back in, filling the basin in decades in a deluge that redefined continental geography. Species gradually recolonized, but subsequent partial isolation permitted evolution of unique subpopulations: Mediterranean fin whales, octopuses with distinct genetic patterns, fish that developed specific tolerances to this sea's unusual salinity. Every creature here carries evolutionary history marked by catastrophes and rebirths, adaptations forged in cycles of extinction and recolonization. The The Mediterranean isn't just the cradle of human civilizations. It's an evolutionary laboratory testing the limits of adaptability on timescales that make empires seem ephemeral. And as we dive these waters today, we witness only a frozen instant in a narrative of millions of years that continues being written with each breath of each creature, each tail beat, each egg deposited in depths nobody watches. The Mediterranean guards secrets in layers, not just in the dark depths where sperm whales hunt ghosts, but in geological time engraved in every species that survived the impossible here. To touch these waters is to touch living history, evolution in motion, the pulse of an ocean that died and resurrects for what remains hidden beneath common waves. Leave your mark on this moment, a like that celebrates biodiversity, a subscription that acknowledges our responsibility as witnesses to this grandeur, a comment sharing which of these Mediterranean creatures touched something deep in your perception of life. Because each view, each interaction, amplifies the message that these oceans deserve more than our passing admiration. They deserve our active protection. The Mediterranean will continue breathing long after we forget this video. The question is, what will we do with what we now know?